Okay, today we will discuss grossly about the retinopathy of prematurity and a few lines about the retinitis pigmentosa. So, retinopathy of prematurity is a disorder of premature low birth weight infants featuring abnormal proliferations of developing blood vessels at the junction of vascular and avascular retina. So, in the retina's layers, so there will be the abnormal proliferations of the blood vessels. So because of the low oxygen, if the child is born premature and it's kept in the NICU, then those type of children may develop the retinopathy of prematurity. So the name itself suggests the retinopathy of prematurity. So abnormal proliferations of the blood vessels. So we have gone several times about the embryology of the retina during the embryology class, and even in the beginning of the retina section also I have discussed. So let's revise a few lines. So retina comprise the tissues derived from the optic vesicles and outgrowth from the diencephalon at approximately 25 days in fetal development. So now you remember the optic curve. From the optic curve, there is outputchings, and later on you will have optic vesicles which invaginates during the fourth fetal weeks to form the curve, and the inner wall of which differentiate into the multi-layer neurosensory retina. So the outer layer of the cup, it forms the retinal pigment epithelium, and the inner layer, the neurosensory retina. So we have discussed this about the neural tubes, then neural tubes. Later on, there is the outputchings, and this optic cup and optic vesicles, then which later on develops into the inner and outer layer. So inner layer, which forms the neurosensory retina, and outer layer, the retinal pigment epithelium. So about the retinal vasculature, until the 4th month of gestation, the retina remains avascular as the hyaloid vasculature provides the nutrients to the developing retina. So during the earlier, the first trimester and even the beginning of the second trimester, the retina is avascular and the nutrition is provided by the hyaloid vessels. So in the 4th month of gestation, the first retinal vessels appears when solid endothelial cord sprout from the optic nerve's head to form a primitive central retinal arterial system. So at the 4th month of gestation, you will find the first central retinal arterial system which develops as a sprout from the endothelial cord. So by the 6th month, these vessels starts developing a faint lumen that occasionally contains a red blood cells. And at this time, the vessel extends 1 to 2 millimeter from the optic disc and continues to migrate outward, extending to the ora serrata nasally and to the equatorial temporally by the 7th to 8th month. So the tissue penetrates the nerve fiber layer and grows centrifugally, reaching the nasal ora serrata by 36 weeks of gestation and more temporally by 40 weeks of gestation. So this retinal vasculature achieved the adult pattern by the 5th month after the birth. So it is generally accepted that vascular endothelial growth factors secreted in the temporal and spatial pattern by microglial and astrocytes plays a critical role in development of both the superficial and deep layers of retinal vasculature. So these growth factors, they help these cells for the development of these vessels. So the retinal vasculature is almost complete or gets the adult pattern by the 5th month after the birth. So there are some historical concept, the term given about the ROP. The retinopathy of prematurity first identified as the retrolental fibroplasia by the Terry in 1942. Because the pattern, the hyaloid vessels pattern, which was which were the initial form of delivering the vasculature to the retina, that that may persist in some even after the delivery, and even in the late stage of the life. So due to that concept, it is the thing behind the lens. So the top, the fibers thing just behind the lens. So it can be said that it is a retrolenter fibroplasia. The term ROP was coined by the Health in 1951, and Campbell established the role of oxygen in the ROP. So 2 epidemics of ROP has been described in the industrialized countries. The first epidemic of blindness occurs in 1942 and early 1950, and affected principally premature babies in USA. So lesser extent in the Western Europe. At that time, the unmonitored supplementary oxygen was the principal risk factors. So that is why, again, they thought it can be due to some oxygen thing, because the 2 epidemic held between the 10 years period, because the unwanted or unmonitored oxygen were given to this premature baby or the small babies. The second epidemic started in 1970 as a consequence of the improved understanding of the risk factors of ROP and better neonatal care, which leads to the higher survival rate of the premature babies. So there are several theories explaining the ROP disease, but the most current and recent theory applied for explaining the ROP disease is this is the extension of the above 2 theories after greater understanding of the event at the cellular level. In the phase 1, there is a hyperoxic environment, that is the supplemental oxygen, leading to sedations of Bez, derived growth factor, and vaso-obliterations of the part of retinal vasculature by the vascular endothelial cells apoptosis, and excessive capillary regressions with the retinal ischemia. So what happens in this type? Due to the hypoxia, there is a sedations of the vascular endothelial growth factor. So what is the role of the vascular endothelial growth factor that have been stopped or have undergone the apoptosis, so which is due to the ischemia. And the second phase of the ROP is the hypoxic driven due to the retinal ischemia and high metabolic demands of developing vessels. Overproductions of the waste is stimulated, resulting in neovascularization. So this vascular endothelial growth factor, if it is less in amount, it is also hazard, and if it is more overproduction, then it is also hazard. So it causes more new vessels formations as there is no more growth factor. So it can also may also cause the ROP. So these 2 phases of the theory explains more about the disease over here. So retinal neovascularization is the hallmark of the phase 2 ROP, and hypoproliferative response may follows in which the vessels leave the retinal plane and enters the vitreous gel, and the vessel accompanying the glial cells develop the contractile properties and can result in detachment of retina from the retinal pigment epithelium. So following the retinopathy of prematurity, in the subsequent sequential manner, the child or infant even develops the retinal detachment. So retinal detachment is due to the contractile force or the tangential force, which is due to the vessels which travels to the vitreous gels, and they travels to the through the glial cells, and due to this tractions or the contractile properties, there will be the pulling effect resulting in the retinal pigment epithelial separation from neurosensory retina. So what are the recent advances in the pathogenesis of the ROP? So role of the oxygen-free radicals in the ROP, the balance between the productions and catabolism of oxygen metabolites is essential in maintaining the normal physiological conditions. So an increased level of the superoxide found in the retina under hyperoxic conditions suggests either the overproductions of the superoxide or reduced level of superoxide, such as is found in the prematurity. So the main thing is the role of the free radicals in the retinopathy of prematurity, that is the balance between the production and use of oxygen. So what is the classifications of the ROP? The international classifications of ROP was published in 1984 under the leadership of the John Fly, later on expanded in 1987. So classifications of ROP requires the assessment of the following 4 parameters, that is the severity or stages of the ROP. So it is very difficult to understand the ROP because there is already the 4 zones and it's divided into the 4 zones and stages of the ROP. So classifications of the disease itself require the assessment in the following stages, like the severity or the stages of the ROP. Second is the anterior-posterior locations of the disease. So site, where is the disease located or where are the changes in the retina. And the extent of retinopathy at the border between the avascular and vascular and avascular retina. So what is the extension? And determinations of the presence of the peripapillary vessels, abnormalities, characteristics as past disease. So extents of ROP, it is given as zone 1, zone 2 and zone 3. Zone 1 is the most posterior zone. So it consists of a circle whose radius is twice the distance from the optic disc to the macula. And zone 2 is shaped like a donut, extends contrifugally from the edge of zone 1 peripherally to the nasal ora serrata. And zone 3 is most peripheral zone, that is residual crescent of the retina temporally and extends edge of the zone 2 to the ora serrata. So when you see this picture, you can understand where is the zone 1, zone 2 and zone 3. So you can draw this picture also. So just to remember the zone 1, zone 2 and zone 3. So by this picture, I think you are clear where is zone 1, zone 2 and zone 3 extension. So may I repeat? So zone 1 is the most posterior zone, that is consist of the, so why it is said posterior? So if you see from the optic disc, optic nerve head, then you see it is anteriorly. When you see from the anterior corneal side, then it goes to the posterior. So most posterior zone consists of the circle of the radius is twice the distance from the optic disc to the macula. So it is just from this disc, it is it is posterior. So it is posterior to disc diameter from this disc. So this is the zone 1. Zone 2 is shaped like the donut and it extends from centrifugally from the edge of zone 1 peripherally to the nasal ora. So this is a nasal ora. And zone 3, this is a temporal ora, this is a nasal ora, and zone 3 is this from the zone 2 to the most peripheral part. So the remaining temporal ora serrata. Now coming to the stages. Stage 1 is the demarcation line, that is a flat white line within the plane of the retina at the junction between the vascularized and avascular retina. So this just a faint line, which you will see between the avascular and vascular retina. This is the stage 1. The vessel ends abruptly at the demarcation line with no vessel extending beyond it. So you will not see any vessels beyond this, and you will just see the vessels over here and all the vessels ends over here. So demarcation line, you remember, that is the stage 1. This is the demarcation line, and when the ridge is formed, stage 2, when this fibrobascular proliferation is there, stage 3, and this is this normal or detachment of the retina. Stage 2 is characterized by development of the ridge at the junction between the vascular and avascular retina. This develops in the region of demarcation line and is generally white or gray in color and may have tiny spots like vascular abnormalities called the popcorn just posterior to it. So popcorn is the isolated tuft of neovascular tissue posterior to the ridge at the level of the retina. So stage 2, you will see this ridge form and there is a top of the vessels over here. So this is called the popcorn pattern or the of the vessels over here, and it is usually gray or white in color. So ridged. Stage 3. Stage 3, you will see the extensional fibrovascular proliferations of the new vascularization that extends from the ridge into the vitreous, and the severity of the lesion can be subdivided into mild, moderate, and severe. In the stage 3, the new vessels will extend anteriorly into the vitreous. So you can see the mild, moderate, and severe form of this. In the mild, presence of only limited amount of the vascular tissues, and in moderate you will see the significant amount of the tissue infiltrating into the vitreous, and in severe form massive infiltrations of the tissue surrounding the ridge is seen. So ridge extensions of the new vessels into the vitreous is the stage 3. And the stage 4 you will characterize by the subtotal retinal detachment, that is 4A is extrafoveal partial retinal detachment, and in stage 4B, partial retinal detachment involving the fovea. So this is a partial and this is a partial but involving the fovea. Stage 5 is characterized by the total retinal detachment and the funnel shape extension of anterior and posterior portion of the retinal detachment is described in as open or closed pattern. So the extent of the disease is circumferential extension of ROP is indicated. So you can remember in the stage 5 just the total retinal detachment. Stage 4 is subtotal and stage 5 is total retinal detachment. So now let's revise the stages. In the stage 1, just a demarcation line is seen. In the stage 2, the ridge formation. In the stage 3, the fibrovascular proliferation with a new vessel extension into the vitreous. In the stage 4, there is a subtotal retinal detachment. And in the stage 5, there is a total retinal detachment. So again, the international classifications of the ROP was updated in 2005 by adding the concept of more virulent form of the ROP, that is the aggressive posterior retinopathy of prematurity, and descriptions of an intermediate level of the vascular dilatation and toxicity of the posterior pole vessels that are insufficient for the diagnosis of the plus disease or pre-plus diseases. So in the 2005, further studies was done and further updated for the classifications for the easiness of the studies. So what is plus disease? It is used to indicate the abnormal vascular dilatations of the posterior pole vessels in a presence of peripheral retinopathy. A plus added is at least 2 quadrant, usually 6 or more clock hours of dilatation and toxicity of the posterior retinal blood vessels is seen. And pre-plus disease is recent classification used thus term to describe the eyes in which peripapillary vessels are not normal but not sufficiently abnormal to be called the plus disease. So used to indicate the clinicians that frequent examinations may be needed. So this is a plus disease where you can see the dilatation and toxicity of the vessels, that is discs, and other vessels you can see. Now, pre-threshold ROP was defined by Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 1, any stages of the ROP without plus disease, and Zone 2 is stage 2 ROP with plus disease, and Zone 3 is stage 3 ROP without plus disease, and Zone 2 stage 3 ROP with plus disease, but fewer than 5 contagious or 8 cumulative clock hours. So the threshold disease is defined as 5 contagious and 8 non-contagious clock hours of involvement of stage 3 with plus disease in Zone 1 or Zone 2. So, okay, this is a little bit difficult for you to understand, but at least if you know the zones, 3 zones and stages, it is enough for you. This slide is not required for you. So the aggressive posterior ROP, which is added in 2005 for the classification, where you can see the vessels patterns of the more toxicity with shunted vessels seen over here. So what are the risk factors for the ROP, which is an important questions for you. So it is a low birth weight, prematurity, so respiratory distress syndrome, surfactant therapy, oxygen therapy for more than 24 hours, multiple blood transfusion, pneumothorax, documented necrotizing enterocolitis, severe intraventricular hemorrhage, patent ductus arteriosus requiring the pharmacological or surgical closure, hypotension requiring the vasopressor therapy, delivery room resuscitations requiring chest compressions and medications, sepsis, and small for gestational age. So these are the different risk factors for the ROP. So prematurity and low birth weight. Numerous studies have found that prematurity and low birth weight have 2 most important factors associated with the ROP. That is, early treatment of the retinopathy of prematurity cooperative groups reported that incidence at 68% and the light reductions in retinopathy of prematurity cooperative groups at 58%. So there is a high percent of oxygen, that is hyperoxia, fluctuation of oxygen level and hypoxia has been associated with development of ROP. Light, the exposure to the bright ambient light following the premature baby has been suggested as a factor in pathogenesis of ROP, since the premature infant normally would be in dark. Light ROP studies demonstrated that there is no protective effects on our ROP by limiting the light exposure to the newborn premature infant. So screening of the ROP is very important, and the need for the ROP screening program arises from the fact that ROP is a blinding disease. Identification of all babies is essential who are at risk of likely to get a severe ROP. It's timely and early detections prevent the undesirable sequelae and progressions to the advanced stages. Current guidelines for screening by American Academy of Ophthalmology, that is infant with birth weight of less than 1500 grams or gestational age of 62 weeks or less, infant with birth weight between 1500 grams to 2000 grams or gestational age of more than 32 weeks, with unstable clinical course and including those requiring the cardiorespiratory support. So these infants should be screened for the ROP. The procedure is performed in NICU by the pediatrics ophthalmologist under the supervisions of the neonatologist, so that complications can be handled. So any neonatologists are there or not, so that they have to supervise or they have to see, because ophthalmologists may not know how to handle the child. So the pediatrics ophthalmologist should screen for those infants. The pupils are dilated with a mixture of the phenylephrine 2.5% and tropicamide 0.4%. Or cyclopentolate 0.5%, instilled 3 times at 10 minutes interval before the scheduled examination. Topical anesthetic and lead speculum should be used. So we have a speculum to see the lead speculum is required to use to reduce the discomfort, and indirect ophthalmoscopy. So we have a like a direct ophthalmoscope. We have an indirect ophthalmoscope which is performed with 20 diopter or 30 diopter lens. Use a fresh sterile instrument, and scleral depression is done to stabilize the eye, rotate it, indent it, and red cam can be used to provide the real-time video display of the images. So screening procedure is very important, and how to screen are summarized in these points. So this is how you will, this is a 20 diopter lens. So with the help of the indirect ophthalmoscope, where a pediatric ophthalmologist is wearing in the head, so they will dilate the pupil with the help of the tropicamide and the phenylephrine combinations, which is kept at 10-minute interval 3 times. Then after the pupil is fully dilated, you will see the child by using the speculum and the scleral indentations. So follow-up examination should be recommended by examining ophthalmologist on the basis of the retinal finding classified according to the international classification. So there is a follow-up chart or a follow-up schedule that is according to the staging, and that is zone involvement. So we have a 1 week or less follow-up, 1 to 2 weeks follow-up, and 2 to 3 weeks follow-up during the regressions of the ROP. So termination of the screening is complete vascularization. Vascularization in zone 3 till 1 diopter, 6 diopter of the temporal ora. Regressed ROP, and 45 weeks of the previous screening with less than pre-threshold disease. So there are different varieties of the treatment depending upon what clinical features you have seen. So retinal ablations with the cryo or laser, anti-VEGF therapy, scleral buckling for the retinal detachment, vitrectomy, and lens sparing or with lensectomy. Okay. So treatment portion is not much necessary for you. Rather than you have to understand what is ROP, what is the pathogenesis of the ROP, and what are the staging which will give you staging, and zone which will give you the clinical features of the ROP. And the treatment is more or less same as that of the retinal detachment. Now coming to the retinitis pigmentosa, which is a very long topic, but I have summarized in only 2 or 3 slides for you, which is required for you. So just the picture will give you what is retinal detachment. The 3 things which you have to learn by heart, or you have to know till you pass the exam, is one is the disc. What is the color which you see? It is not the pink red, but it is the yellow axis. And the second is what you see in the periphery, lots of black dot, and these are in the periphery you have, the presence of the rods. So these are the disease of the rods which you have seen over here, lots of changes. And in the macula which you have seen, which is the color, it's not the normal macula. So retinitis pigmentosa is a genetic disorder of the eye that causes loss of vision. So symptoms include the trouble seeing at night and decreased peripheral vision. So what are the causes of this trouble night visions, or which you will not see in the night, that can be asked to you in your exam. At peripheral vision wards, people may experience the tunnel vision, means only this first part you will see, the front part, that is the tunnel visions, and complete blindness is uncommon. Findings related to the retinitis pigmentosa have often been characterized in the fundus of the eye as a ophthalmic triads, that is the molted appearance of the retipigment epithelium, called as the bony spicules formation. So all the black patches which you will see in the periphery, so they are called the bony spicules. So this is the hallmark of the retinitis pigmentosa, so which is the molted appearance of the retinal pigment epithelium. And the waxy colored appearance of the optic nerve head, that is the optic disc. So waxy yellow optic disc, and the attenuations of the blood vessels. So you will see the attenuated blood vessels over here, the very thin blood vessels, pale waxy disc, and the bony spicules. So onset of the symptoms is generally gradual, often in the childhood, and it's generally inherited from the person parents. Mutation in one or more than 50 genes are involved, and underlying mechanism involves a progression loss of the rod photoreceptor cells, and this is generally followed by loss of cone photoreceptor cells. So diagnosis is by an examinations of the retina, finding the dark pigment deposits. So clinically only you can know that what is the disease by seeing clinically all those bony spicules. Our supportive testing may include electroretinogram, visual field testing, and genetic testing. So visual field, if there is vision, some amount of the vision, then you can do. Otherwise, you cannot do. So it is mainly the genetic testings and the electroretinogram. So we do not do this much. So what is our diagnosis depends mostly on the clinical finding. So there is currently no cure for the retinitis pigmentosa. Effort to manage the problems may include the use of low vision aids, potentially lighting and orientations and morbidity training. And vitamin A, a palliative supplementary and visual prosthesis may be an option in certain patients with severe disease. So it's estimated to affect 1 in 4,000 people. So our counseling must be very good for these patients because they are going to lose visions at the end of the disease. So it's you have to explain everything and counsel the patients and put the patient where there is a nice low vision aid. So for the regular follow-up. Okay, so this much for your retinitis pigmentosa. It is very short, but a patient comes to you frequently. So you must be seeing by dilating the pupil. So you have to see the fundus, the vessels, and this peripheral retina with the bony spicules, and you have to counsel the patient. There are various types of retinitis pigmentosa, and the disease is associated with the various types of other ocular and systemic diseases also. So you can see the sectoral retinitis pigmentosa also. You can see with Alport syndrome. You can see with other type of the disease also. So you have to dilate and try to rule out the thing. And maybe require the systemic investigations or the examinations also. So today we have discussed about the ROP and the retinitis pigmentosa. Tomorrow we will discuss the retinoblastoma, and I think the retina will be over, and I will again continue after the TR with other topics. So if any questions, then put. Otherwise, I am going to end the class. You have to open your questions bank and see whether there are any questions about the ROP or about the this retinitis pigmentosa in your question bank, because I do not have my question bank over here, and so that it will be easy. And if it is there, because one questions will come and extra question except from the question bank. So for that, to obtain a very good marks and at least to write something in your exam, you have to be prepared with this also. I think this ROP, if you know this much about the ROP and this retinitis pigmentosa, it will cover both your theory and practical. So causes of the tubular vision is very simple. So I think you will find out these causes of the tubular vision. I don't have to say it. It is one is the retinitis pigmentosa, other is a retinal detachment, chronic retinal detachment, and if in case of the end stage of the angle-closure glaucoma or open angle glaucoma, then with some drugs. So you will try to make a list, at least 4 or 5. Okay, thank you.